The meeting to order. This is the Assembly Enterprise and Utility Oversight Committee of the whole meeting. We're scheduled from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. today. I'd like to go ahead and start with member introductions. In the room, I have
Mark Littlefield.
And then on the phone, I see Member Myers. Didn't hear anything, but we can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Member Braga.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I heard something there. And then Member Rivera.
Hey, Zach.
Hi, thanks. Okay. Well, I think that's roll call for the day. So let's go ahead and just drive right into new business. First item we have is solid waste services with an update on the woodlot. And just if you guys would introduce yourselves and jump right in.
Hi, Kelly Toth, Director, Solid Waste Services.
And Mark Spafford, Deputy Municipal Manager.
So,
Sorry, I'll just quickly note for the record, Member Martinez has joined us at 11:03.
so just a quick update today on the woodlot and the update. I just wanted to share with you a little bit about what we did last year and what we plan to do this year. So it'll be a quick overview for you. Last year was the first year in 2 years that that there has been a woodlot available in the south central side of Anchorage. The woodlot had been closed for 2 years, and we have heard just by way of proxy that the Solid Waste Services runs the woodlot out at the landfill, so the public would think that we ran the other woodlot, which we didn't. So that other woodlot was closed for 2 years. We opened the material recovery facility. We said, let's make a woodlot at the old central transfer station. So that's what we did.
Excuse me, Chair. There's problems with people on the phone can't hear.
Okay, I'm just going to pause this quickly. It's been brought to my attention by Member Littlefield that we might have some technical difficulties. So I will just take a quick breath to see if we can figure that out.
Unmuted.
All right, I think we fixed it. Please text me again, members, if you have any further problems. Sorry for that. Please continue.
So for the central woodlot, this was the first time in 2 years that south central Anchorage has had a woodlot open and available. So last year with the material recovery facility, we opened, and it was a soft opening because it was the first time we had ever done anything like this. It really was a multi-departmental effort. I would like to recognize and thank the Anchorage Fire Department for their partnership in this central woodlot. So last year, it was just a soft opening. We didn't do a whole lot of robust outreach. It was mostly word of mouth. We did some social media, but it resulted in about 1,400 loads of wood and brush last year from June to October. Remember that we were only open 3 days a week. So that was a staggering amount of activity by word of mouth and only being open 3 days a week. So staff hours, 455 hours associated with last year. You'll see, June was kind of a soft start with 76 people coming through. By August, we had about 400 people, and then it sort of tapered off as would be expected for the woodlot last year. In looking at the financials, the customer service, staff, labor time, the shredder, transport, and woodlot operation, you can see that running the central woodlot required some additional overhead that you wouldn't expect at the landfill, just with the trucking and hauling and excavation, that kind of thing. The airspace at the Anchorage Regional Landfill was calculated by using the closure date costs and based on the capacity in that closure date. So that's where that airspace calculation came from. Revenue, we had disposal fees. We did charge the public $20 a load. And then with the fire department wildfire grant, that brought us in just short of what the expenses were. So we made up the difference with the recycling surcharge. As you recall, it's $18 a flat load for refuse, and then the public pays an additional $2 for recycling. So the recycling program did exactly what it's supposed to, which is to subsidize recycling and diversion programs. The regional landfill woodlot, that's the one out at the landfill. We open that one for free only on Fridays and Saturdays. So between with only Friday and only Saturday, May through September, we brought in almost 3,000 loads, and that was about $60,000, $57,000 of foregone revenue. That's only on those 2 days. That does not account for the other days that we were charging for disposal. So the expenses out there, as you would imagine, were much less. It was almost $40,000 when you calculate the overhead costs for that. So basically what we're planning to do this year is a pilot program. This is a one year. We want to just open up and make both woodlots for free for the public. We've heard from the Anchorage Fire Department. We will be doing a joint press release very soon that the woodlots will be free for all Anchorage residents this year at both locations. And the reason for that is because SWS and the fire department both realize and recognize a danger for the community. So this isn't going to be always free, but this year, because of the windstorms and because of the beetle kill, we want to really make a dent in making wildfire mitigation a real thing. And we know that the way to do that is to just make it available for everybody. So you recall that back in January, we had a large windstorm, and we did open the woodlot for free in the central woodlot. And mainly that was because we didn't have to plow. We didn't have a lot of snow, and it was easy and it made sense. And so we did it. And we did do a video that we just want to share with you that kind of explains what we did and why we did it. Yep. Okay. Good. Hey everybody, Kelly, Solid Waste Services. Man, we had a doozy windstorm this weekend, and just like everybody else, I'm cleaning up wood too. We don't want to leave this kind of fuel laying around, so at SWS, we opened up all of our woodlots for free from now until January 31st. So we hope you'll take the time to load up your trailers. Maybe you've got a helper, like I've got Mason here helping me out today. Bring your wood to the woodlots and let's clean up our
Oh, it's nasty. Yeah, we had over 100 mile an hour winds up there on the hillside. I've been up here my whole life now. It's about the biggest winds we've seen. Having a woodlot here free for this cleanup is a big deal because I'm going to probably, between me and my neighbor, probably be 7 or 8 loads. And if we had to pay for that, that would be a lot of money.
Well, I found in my backyard after I came back from my cabin, and my neighbor's tree had fallen across our fence. So I went down and I cut it down, and I'm getting ready to throw it out here in the woodlot, which is free, which is great.
If you don't take the time and the opportunity to remove the fuels that are all over the ground right now because of this significant windstorm, it creates a problem just because it's heavier, denser material that if we get an ignition within that, it'll generate a little bit more heat and create a greater risk to structures and the wildlife fuels that are around there. I think all of us have driven around town and seen where the municipality's done a great job of clearing the streets, but some of the material has ended up in folks' yards. Sometimes it's not the tree that fell from your house that's in your yard. So asking the neighbors to lend a hand and see if somebody's got a chainsaw and clean that material up is a good way to support each other and also get to know your neighbors.
Everybody pitching in and getting rid of this stuff now and taking care of it when we can. It's always great. So help each other out and get this stuff off your lot and bring it over to this wonderful wood lot. Better than
Always a smart media strategy to include a dog.
I like her. That's it. That's all for us.
Member Littlefield, question.
I just a couple quick questions. I might have missed it. Can you tell me in 2025 what days the woodlots are going to be open in Central and ARL?
So the Anchorage Regional Landfill woodlots are open right now. They'll become free starting March 29th, and it'll run through September 30th. So they'll be open 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday.
Okay.
And so the central woodlot, our plan is to open that May 1st, unless we can get it mobilized before then. But we're still bringing staff on board. So once we get our staffing figured out, hopefully we'll have that open as well. But for now, we're planning May 1st
And Central.
at the
will-
central woodlot.
It'll be open 6 days a week too?
Yes.
Okay, thank you much.
Question for me. So you went through the expenses associated with operating the woodlots in 2024, and as I often remind people, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So, well, I'm glad that we're encouraging people to clean up their yards. What's, maybe I missed if it was on the slides, what's the plan to cover the costs associated with these operations for 2025?
So thank you for the question. To subsidize some of it, the fire department will be providing some of their wildfire mitigation funding for it, but the rest of it's going to come out of our bottom line. It's coming out of our equity to pay for those expenses.
Okay, and then as an independent utility, I mean, ultimately those costs will get passed on to the users who pay fees.
Well, and the subsidy primarily is going to be that $2 recycle fee. So it's something that's already being paid now by the public. So if you come in and you bring your trash in at $18, the additional $2 will go toward helping to subsidize this program. So it's not as bad as, yeah, at a loss that you think.
Okay, thank you. I want to note for the record, Member Rivera has joined us in person now, and we also, Member Constant joined us at 11:08, but had to duck back out. Yeah, I'll just say I thank you for this. You know, I as you well know, I'm very nervous about 2025 and the fire hazard, and so I think whatever we can do to give people encouragement and then, you know, ultimately a tool they need to help mitigate that risk. You know, I've already been hauling stuff to the, well, frankly, just to the tipping floor because we don't have the woodlot open yet. But yeah, I think this is a good thing. I understand that it's not always easy for you guys to figure out how to manage these programs as you balance all of it. But I think it's good, and I'm glad we're going to try this for 2025. Anyone else have anything else for SWS? I don't know. Member Custom's back in here. Go ahead.
Just to add to, you might recall that we put in an appropriation for a new shredder. So we do have a large new shredder that's coming that will actually open our ability to shred other materials. So we'll be looking at that just to be able to utilize and save on airspace. And so we're also going to be doing some pilot studies on some aerated and hot static piles for composting. So we will be utilizing some of that wood for that. And who knows, maybe we'll be able to identify another circular economy type resource for that wood. So just know that it's not just going to the landfill, but we are going to be utilizing it for beneficial use as well.
Excellent. Thank you. Member Bronga had a question.
Thanks. I just, if I missed it, I apologize, but I'm hoping for this woodlot that it's really clear that you can't have any screws or nails. My husband brought a big load over and was sent home. So if they can't have any nails or screws, we need to make sure that's known.
Yes, thank you, Member Bronga. In fact, it's going to be quite clear that this is for wildfire mitigation, so no lumber or other building materials, and we'll work to make that extra clear for folks so that that doesn't happen.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Member Constant.
Thanks, Kelly. So we had a fire because of like nickel cadmium batteries out there, some battery issue. Have we established locations for recycling of those batteries that are kind of distributed across town enough that people will meaningfully use them?
So what we did was we identified both of the household hazardous waste facilities, both at the landfill and at the central transfer station, as well as the Girdwood transfer station. So each one of those locations has a method and a means to collect those batteries safely and dispose of them, store them safely and dispose of them safely. But the idea of doing a remote collection, there are going to be some specific events, collection events that will happen, but to have a static station that's not manned and then just have a bucket for batteries is asking for problems. So we are working through that. I think by doing the collection through the events, that will help to maybe solve some of that that need or?
Yes, I think then probably some kind of a communications campaign that establishes a timeline and a work plan annually this time and this maybe a few times a year, because they just pile up and no one knows what to do with them. And, you know, some of us never go to the landfill because we don't have any business there. And so to take 10 nickel cadmium batteries there for a side trip, it's just not happening for people. And so the risk is that if we don't have a good and robust methodology, then status quo is going to remain, which is the illegal dumping of these things right into the landfill. And so I hope we do come up with a pretty solid communications plan to give people methods to get those things safely where they need to go. And maybe there should be some technology to neutralize them, but at some point, you know, we'll get there hopefully.
Well, funny you mention that because next week the EPA is having an online conversation about lithium batteries and the potential for extended producer responsibilities and that kind of thing. So there is actually a national battery work group that I'm on. So maybe something will come of that. But for now, we're doing the best that we can for now.
And I've started taping them, you know.
Yeah, good.
And then they sit there and someday I'm going to go to the landfill. So there's like this growing pile and there has to be a better way. Thank you.
All right, not seeing anyone else. Thank you both very much for being here.
Thank you.
Pam, you're up. All right, with that, yeah, when you guys are ready, go ahead and introduce yourself.
On a more serious note, sure thing.
Take
Becky
away.
Wynn Pearson, Municipal Manager.
Eric Adams, Jacobs Program Manager.
And Bill Falsey, Chief Administrative Officer.
And if I might, before we dive in, Mr. Chair, just a kind of quick review of what we're going to walk through today and the limitations of what we're going to walk through today, but the why for why we're here still, even with limitations. So as the body is well aware, we are now past the RFP deadline for the Terminal 1 construction contract. So we have received bids, but we are still in the bid review process. We have not yet reached conclusion on an award to an individual bidder. So as a result, we're subject to the Title VII restrictions in terms of what we can talk about in a public forum. That said, we're under a time crunch in terms of how quickly we'd like to get this agreement reviewed and complete and approved because of the fact that we had set a May 7th limited notice to proceed deadline as part of the revised construction schedule. And so meeting that keeps us on track and also preserves what we saw as one of the benefits of kicking the construction contract timing back when we had to go back out to rebid, which is that it gives us a little bit more time for the contractor to make sure they're meeting their deadlines. So all that said, we have a short timeline, so we wanted to start the conversation today. And the things that we are going to review today are three. First, we're going to talk through the general contours of the construction agreement, just to lay out what are we looking at in terms of major contract terms. Those contract terms are subject to red line revision right now because we didn't open RFP. Bidders are able to submit red line revisions as part of their response to the request for proposals. So, but the major terms of the contract, we do not anticipate changing. So we're going to be talking through what that framework looks like. We will then also talk about what we anticipate potentially needing in terms of additional bonding authority. I'm going to tee up the question about that because we are going to need to come to the body with an ask for some additional bonding authority in order to award the contract and also move forward as we are planning to do with the design contract for Terminal 2. The third thing we're going to talk about is the status of the crane agreements. There's a crane purchase agreement and the crane use agreement between the municipality and Matson, which we've teed up before, and just want to talk about status and where we are on those items right now. So that's what we have planned for today. And I would say then we would conclude with an offer to do whatever is most helpful in terms of next steps to have the body receive the information that you all need in order to move forward with reviewing our ask for approval of these documents. We can, prior to an award deadline, convey additional information in an executive session if the desire is to notice a meeting and have an executive session in which to do more of a deep dive review. We can also review more information publicly once we have concluded the RFP review process, the response review process. So just wanted to offer that as an initial, and also offer that on the record, because there may be questions where we feel like we're giving cagey responses, and the caginess is not designed to be cagey, it is designed to be compliant with Title VII. So just wanted to offer that initially. And with that, I will turn it to
Real quick
Adams,
before you
unless there
move
are
forward.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, so, Mr. Chair, maybe I missed it because I was a little distracted, but I know there's a conversation coming up about Jacobs. Did you say that that was part of this conversation, or are we going to hold that for now?
No, we're going to hold that for another time.
Okay, and so for members' benefit, it's just the Jacobs has been the contract designer of engineer, and that contract is coming to a close sometime in the near future. And there is an ongoing conversation about what structure, procurement processes, et cetera, to go through forward for that. So just as a matter of business for this committee, that's a conversation that's coming.
Correct. That is something that will come up. The program management contract with Jacobs concludes in, I believe, September of this year. And so we can just start the conversation now about the chosen procurement method for moving forward with program management of the PAMP. But that's not on the agenda for discussion today. With that, we'll turn it to Mr. Adams to start with the review of the T1 construction contract.
Okay, thank you. Once again, Eric Adams with Jacobs, Program Manager. As Becky indicated, I've got about 7 slides total. This is extremely high level, but kind of talk about the RFP process and what it's a lump sum and allowances and items like that are in there. So Cargo Terminal 1 contracting strategy, request for proposals, procurement process, combined qualifications and costs for best value. To the municipality, we allocated 40 points for the qualification-based score. That's basically the technical review, which we're working on now, and then 60 points possible for cost-based score. Proposal documents were received. It says March 4th on here. They were all submitted on time. Jacobs and the evaluation committee got them on March 4th. And as I mentioned, I'm currently, the evaluation team is made up of 5 people. We're reviewing the technical proposals. Construction contract structure, strategy for managing cost growth. So one of the key items is construction contractors' price is comprised of lump sum items and allowances. And so everybody understands what a lump sum item is you tell me you're going to charge me $5 million for this. That's it. There's lump sum. The key item here is allowances. We estimated, like for an example, everybody's aware of beluga whales, right? We don't know how much time it's going to take. We have a good idea when I say we've estimated a certain time based on history facts of how many beluga whale stoppages we've had over the since 2018. That is an allowance in the contract of a certain amount of hours. If that standby cost of hours is exceeded, we'd come back because that's a change order in the contract. But we estimated those allowances and put a buffer on them as well. Most of the assembly is aware. I use an example of the administration building that was completed. We ran into a lot of soil contamination during that and had to come back to the body and ask for change order authority to clean that up. Well, what we've done is we've allowed an allowance in the contract. And so the goal is not having to come back for that. And so that's what I mean. The contract is made of 2 parts, which is a lump sum part and the allowances. So the allowances are really beluga whales, standby time, and contaminated soils cleanup. Any questions on that? And that comprises of the total price of the contract. Okay, construction strategy for managing timely performance. Construction contract has 2 scope of works mainly. The first describes completion of the dock prior to the gantry crane delivery, and the second describes the dock completion. Each one of those have liquidated damages tied to it to make sure to add the incentive to the contractor for on-time completion. We brought to the body before what those LDs are, previous discussions. The first one, if they miss the scope of work one, it's $18.5 million coming back to the city. And then it's a daily fine after that as well. And daily fine of up to $85,000 for failure to complete scope of work two. And that's per day. Any questions on that? Okay, next steps on T1, goal for the PAMP team, the evaluation is to complete proposals review next week. And then as Becky alluded to, the ask is for all assembly actions involving Terminal 1 be completed no later than April 16th. So that's the ask on Terminal 1. And then just for the surrounding communities around the port, I did want to just throw this in here. Wasn't on the agenda, is upcoming work on NES 1. Please be aware that the contractor will be arriving on site mid-April. Dredging will be a 24-hour activity similar to last year. And so for the communities surrounding the port, just make sure your constituents are aware of that.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I realize that the date presented by Mr. Adams is a change from, I think I had anticipated previously, we may be able to swing the May 7th LNTP deadline with an approval at the second regularly scheduled meeting in April. At this point, we believe we will have to request a special meeting earlier than that to preserve that May 7th date. So, underscore that and ask. Do you want to go next? Or?
Before you do, Member
Yeah.
Costa had a question.
Yeah, so you're asking for final action by the 16th of April. Will an item be presented to us on the 8th?
Yes, no later than the 8th, absolutely. And with it will come, and the reason I think we're targeting the 16th is we anticipated introduction of every item that we're seeking action on the 8th in the ordinary course of putting items on the agenda. And one of those items will be an AO regarding bonding authority. So that will be the one that requires notice and a hearing. And thus our calculation was introduction on the 8th, we need at least 7 days notice. So the earliest we could ask for a special meeting would be April 16th.
Okay. So practically what that looks like is if the meeting of the 8th has a number of other business items to conclude before the 22nd, that the 16th is a target date. Now, is the 16th, you said maybe it could be a little bit of April be okay that week?
I think at least what I heard from Eric is that the 16th, past the 16th, we start chipping away at like this May 7th deadline starts to move out.
So, but practically speaking, would that 48 hours make the difference? Because we've had requests from members to contain special activities and work sessions and such to Thursdays and Fridays. And so Wednesday, I think it could work, but I'm just trying to assess the fine detail there.
Okay, just to add on, a couple things you guys know better, so I'm just going to ask a question. Need immediate reconsideration so we don't have a waiting period after the vote, so I can get the contract out. Just for your history, the contract has 5 days to sign it, right? And then I have to get it through the whole municipal process with that time remaining before May 6th, so I can get the LNT out the door. And so I believe we can do that through the municipal process, working with Bill and Becky and department heads. But just the contractor has 5 days after I send them the contract.
Okay, so the practical decision-making point then would be, it would be sometime either the 16th, 17th, or 18th of April, and that wouldn't create severe undue burden.
I think that's right. I mean, I think the purchasing department has to scramble as the more we push on them, but I think we can make it happen. I understand.
Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead.
Thanks, members of the committee. I also wanted to bring to you a light preview of an item that I think we'll discuss in greater depth down the road. We're going to be bringing to you something of a cleanup item and a procurement item that will look chunky and maybe scary, but I want to demystify it a little bit here. Last February in 2024, you passed AO 2024-11S, which gave the port bonding authority to create budget, but didn't actually allow the port to issue bonds or make an surcharge. What we would like the agenda, which will marry up the bonding authority, the plan of finance that we have introduced, so that we would have the full budget amount to proceed with Terminal 1 and Terminal 2. Partly, that is because the amount that you approved last February was $453 million, and what was keyed to some Terminal 1 discussions, but we are now procuring the Terminal 2 design as well. And partly that is to make sure that we can land all of these items in the procurement on the right timeline. So we will be putting that item in the queue for you to see and have more conversations as we get closer to actually passing it. I don't think it would be asked to be passed until we have the Terminal 1 procurement in front of you as well. There are immediate questions. I can try to handle them now, but that's all just by way of don't fall out of your chair if you see a very big dollar amount associated with the budget authority.
Member Constant?
I would just here soon.
Yeah.
Anyone else on that?
I would just note, it is wise to argue that we want to tie the amount authorized to the plan of finance. So the plan of finances has a basis, not just a rumor. And so there is a strong argument.
Okay, so then on to item 3, which is our quick update on where we are on the crane agreements. And just to refresh, these are basically the slides that I showed in the fall, although the formatting seems to have gotten wonky in transmission. Just a reminder of what these are. Reminder that the old agreement has a couple different pieces. We have the construction contract with the T1 construction contractor, and then we have 2 agreements with Matson. The crane agreement, which is the terms of their agreement to purchase the gantry cranes, bring them to Anchorage and install them on the dock, and then the crane use agreement, which is what governs long-term use of those cranes while they're in operation at the port. So this just a few details on the agreement. And again, I feel like the font was transposed somehow in transmission. So a little bit of apologies for the words coming off the bottom of the page, but 3 agreements, the construction contract, really again, the responsibilities of the construction contractor. We're currently reviewing red lines as part of the RFP process. And this is where we have the LDs language that Mr. Adams already referenced. If the dock is not complete in time for crane installation, timely under the crane agreements. The crane agreement is again that purchasing, procurement, transportation, delivery, installation. Also includes damages language that the municipality pays to Matson if the dock is not complete in time for the scheduled crane installation. And then we have the use agreement, which is that long-term use of the cranes while they're on the dock. Back to the 2 risks we flagged in the fall. That is part of the situation. Again, formatting is weird, but the risks are, one, that the municipality doesn't preserve adequate flexibility to allow for other uses that we anticipate of those cranes after their installation during the life of the port. And the second is that we end up, we are contractually obligated to pay damages to Matson for issues caused by our contractor, not directly caused by us, and trying to minimize the risk to the municipality of being on the hook for damages caused by a party that is not the municipality. And so in terms of the crane use agreement, this is still under negotiation, so I can't represent that this is exactly the final language. This is what we're workshopping right now, which preserves for the municipality the ability to use those Matson cranes for non-commercial and humanitarian use for the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, and FEMA, and then also for certain transient and non-permanent uses, which are defined by the number of uses within a certain period. And this, at this point, is we're working toward a place of comfort based on the recommendations of the port leadership about what they realistically anticipate happening at the port. So I think my message to you is we're going to get there. There are going to be some limitations. It won't be unfettered use of the cranes, but we would feel confident we can get to a place where the uses we anticipate needing of those cranes are going to be something that we can document in the agreement. In terms of the crane agreement, this is where last time I talked about the damages sandwich, which you might remember had 3 parts in its last iteration. There was the first 30 days when we were getting an exact dollar figure from the construction contractor and passing it on to Matson at the other end for a delay. A second phase where we got a lump sum from our contractor and we paid actual reasonable damages to Matson, and then a third phase where we start getting an additional payment if the second scope of work fails to be completed by the contractor. Challenge right now in terms of the generality is that both sides of those equations are currently subject to red line review because, again, we went back out to open RFP with the contractor and we're still negotiating with Matson. So I, at this point, don't have concrete detail on exactly where that damages sandwich is going to land, other than to say we are continuing to negotiate around the shared goals of minimizing the municipal risk for damages caused by contractor delay and preserving optionality if deadlines are missed, which I know we were operating under direction from the SPOTty to preserve an option to purchase those cranes at cost if we get to a point where there's been substantial delay and we would rather just move to purchasing of them. So still negotiating with those goals in mind and working on the specifics of this sandwich, acknowledging that both pieces of bread are subject to some potential revision in the coming days. That is what I've got today. Any questions specifically on those agreements?
Member Costa.
Thanks. Could you go back on the slides? to
Sure.
The one which, the sole use, that one. So in the design, do the cranes go across T1 and T2? Or it would have to be separate cranes for T2?
It would have to be separate cranes for T2,
Okay, so they aren't going to be linked.
unless someone tells me otherwise. I don't understand them to be linked. No. Okay.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
I have a question then.
Yeah.
So I understand that currently at the port, we have two, main cargo users. One uses cranes, one does not.
Mhm.
What happens if that changes in the future and these cranes are something that would need to be made available for somebody other than Matson for commercial use? And I think maybe we're talking, not the immediate foreseeable future, but just kind of a what if. What happens if Total Use comes in with a new type of ship, something like that, and these are the cranes we have to move cargo?
And I think the path that we have there is that what we've put in place in terms of making Terminal 2 something that could accommodate cranes going forward. My assumption would be that if Tote remains the second provider at the port, but fundamentally changes its model to a lift-on, lift-off model, that's when we would be taking those next steps with respect to T2 we'd then execute the commercial terms of some other agreement to add cranes to that dock as well. Because realistically speaking, our carriers both come on the same day. We can't use the same dock even if they're both using the same modality. So we would then have the question of installing cranes on the second terminal.
Okay.
I think there's a secondary question there that might get a little closer to the point. Like, it's at Terminal 1, if there is another commercial user that comes into place, like, what would the dynamic be? But the likeliest situation there, because of the nature of the market, is that would be a case where Matson was deciding to liquidate their Alaskan assets, and it would be a part of a sale. And so that would be my guess of how that would be achieved, unless there was some formal agreement that came, but that would be negotiated separate from this. And it would be specific to terms between all the parties at that time. And so it would probably have to be at sole discretion of Matson to sign on to an agreement, but that would be with terms that we would propose. It would be all problems for municipal managers of another day.
Correct. I think if the question is, if there is some third-party carrier that shows up and wants permanent long-term use of cranes and we could preserve the two providers we have right now and then acquire a third, that's where we're kind of all bets are off. That's not accommodated in this agreement. We'd have to figure out what we would do with that. It's not the plan that's part of this contractual structure. This contractual structure is based on our reasonable prediction of what we think will actually happen in our market going forward. And again, we've designed the structure of the two terminals to accommodate a potential change in modality on Terminal 2, but not necessarily to preemptively accommodate a whole new third provider entering our market and needing a facility that they can have that's designed for their use.
That raises another question. Is this an agreement in perpetuity? What are the terms, like a length of time for our user agreements for these operations?
That's a good question. Actually, I'm not remembering exactly what the term is. Do you want to speak to that, Ben?
Good morning, through the chair to
Chair Constant. The term of the crane use agreement is basically in perpetuity. It's a description of the relationship between parties. This new version would be replacing an agreement that is decades old.
So, does the agreement then really clearly state that it is their liability to replace and repair them as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll just ask, if you guys haven't already, could you email us this presentation just so we can make sure we get it up on that committee site?
Absolutely, and I apologize for the lateness of our submissions this morning. I think we're working through negotiation in real time, so we were thinking, what if something moves before we apologize for lateness and we'll circulate.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. And I think that's all we have for the PAMP today. We have nothing under the stormwater utility plan for today unless something I'm not aware of. Nope. Okay, I think that covers it. With that, we're actually kind of ahead of schedule for once. So let's see, is anyone here for audience participation? I'm not seeing anyone in the room. With that, I think we have concluded our business. One last look around the room and we will adjourn. Thank you.